things we do in organizations which you have to wonder why we do them. And organizations back in the 50s to the 70s or so, for example, GE, IBM, Honeywell, companies of that kind, they were bellwethers. Because what they did was they set the tone. There are others like Harvard Business School, Stanford, and so on. And of course, great authors that wrote books that sent us in a direction to follow a particular path. More recently, it's probably Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on who set the trends. They're the bellwethers. But what happens is that we then copy many of these things, and that's the bellwether effect. Now, what this has done for us is created 8 big demotivators in business. One of them is fear. Now, many of us will say this doesn't exist in our own organizations, but truthfully it does. So I often ask CEOs, I spend most of my life working with leaders, CEOs all over the world, and I ask them, how are things going? And they tell me, you know, it's really terrific here. We've got a tremendous morale, we're very successful, things are going really well, people love their jobs, it's a great place to work. Then I ask the people who actually work in the organization a little lower down, how are things here? This place sucks. So I end up with these two completely different perspectives of what actually is happening in the organization, and this is what we call dissonance, the difference between what people think and what they believe. So let me start by telling you a little bit about these 8 different things that we do. This word love is a very difficult word in the business context. It's a very strange thing that we simply can't bring ourselves to bring that word into the day-to-day practice of our lives. And in fact, we do the opposite. People are afraid of losing their jobs, they're afraid of making mistakes, they're afraid of unions and government and regulations and being hacked and all kinds of things. So life is about fear for a lot of people. We don't help much. You look south of the border and you can see fear has probably never been at its highest levels than it is today. And probably today will be a referendum on fear in the US too. There's some great work being done in the University of British Columbia by 2 professors who've come up with this idea. They have identified what they call the dark triad personality. In other words, what makes up an evil person? And it looks like this. 3 things. Machiavellianism, the ability and the desire to manipulate and control the behavior of others. Narcissism, a fixation on oneself, self-centeredness. And subclinical psychopathological behavior. This sort of shows up in organizations that say things like, people are our most important asset, and then fire 400 of them just before Christmas. And this goes on, as you know. Now, you could say that Machiavellianism, the manipulation of others, is what we might call marketing. Or you might say that narcissism is about the way we promote and hustle in the marketplace. And then, of course, psychopathological behavior is how we hurt people in all kinds of ways. One of the things I've noticed in my work with leaders is that you can have bad strategies, but a great team, where there's a seamless relationship between the players who are running the business, and that bad strategy will work. And then you can see the opposite, where there is a phenomenal strategy, a brilliantly thought out strategy, but the players, the people who have to implement it, are so dysfunctional, it fails. In other words, it's really not about the strategy. It's about the chemistry between the leaders. And the whole point, it seems to me, of what leadership is about creating inspiring relationships. So inspiring relationships is really the journey that we're all on here. If we can make those things happen everywhere, at every level, then we really don't need so much of the process that we talk about in modern organizations. I did a little piece of research not long ago where I looked up in a Google academic search, what are the characteristics that we talk about most when we think about leaders? And this is a list of them. You can see them there. Decision-making, motivating, building a great team, and so on. And then I did another piece of research, and I said, what does it look like when we think about great relationships, great marriages, great romantic partnerships, great domestic relationships of all kinds? And this is what that list looks like. So how do you think this actually works? Do we get up in the morning and say, goodbye, honey, I'm going to work now. I'm going to be decisive, decision-making, visionary, great team builder, and motivator? and then come home at the end of the day, say, hi, honey, I'm going to be intimate, passionate, loving, and caring, and sweet. Are we two different people? Wouldn't we, don't you think, use one set of values everywhere in our lives? Why can't we be vulnerable? Why can't we be humble? Why can't we be intimate at work? Why is it only outside work that we have to do this? And if you think about the great places that we've worked in our lives, they've been places that are on the right side of the list, not the left side. So we've actually been teaching a mechanism that is really not that helpful. And that's why 80% of the population is not happy at work. And if you're nervous about putting the word love into the workplace, which I hope you won't be, I hope you'll have the courage to introduce that concept at work. People need to love their work. They need to love the people they're with and love the reason for doing it, and they love what they do. But a theory that was developed by Kevin Roberts some years ago, he was the chairman of Saatchi & Saatchi, the largest advertising agency in the world, and he has a little matrix. On the left to right axis is love, and on the bottom to top axis is respect. This is how he portrays things. He says that products have a low love and low respect. That would be like Yellow Label, no frills, and so on. Brands, low love, but very high respect. Nike. Fads, high love, low respect. This would be your pet rock. And what he called love marks, high love and high respect. So you see the concept of love is actually built into the whole concept of what do our products and services look like. Think, in this case, Apple, or Patagonia, or the Body Shop. There are many love marks, Toyota, the Prius, and so on. So the shift really we're trying to make then, the first of these, is from fear-based leadership and management to love-based management and leadership. My wife often used to say, if we had I say in the past, because she passed away 4 years ago, but she used to say to me this wonderful thing. If we had any kind of tense conversation, we never had a fight in 30 years, but we would have disagreements. And she would stop and she would say, treat me like a customer. Great line. It made me think carefully, because she knew I loved my customers, and I treat them that way. And then sometimes I think she might have wondered, do you love your customers more than me? The shift from fear to love. Rumi put it so perfectly. He says, love is the bridge between you and everything. You need to remember that in the corporate world. We've forgotten that. And it's a part of the misery that so many people live with. Secondly, from motivation to inspiration. Now, you may not have thought about this as being a different thing, but I want to tell you that motivation, which is what we built our society on, what we built our human resource policy on, and what we built our leadership theory on, is built on fear. So let me unbundle this a little bit. We confuse motivation and inspiration as if they're the same thing. We say, I want to be motivated and inspired. But actually, they're quite different. And I'll show you this. So motivation is to provide a motive to induce, incite, impel. Remember the dark triad personality. It's about manipulating the behavior of other people. It's about being very self-centered and at times psychopathic. So this is what happens when we're motivating other people. Now think about our society. This is what we do everywhere. Remember, it's fear-based. We're trying to manipulate the behavior of other people. So for example, if I give you a quota in the sales department, you are now in a fear place because you hope that you won't miss your quota. But it's not about you anyway, it's about me. Because if I have 10 salespeople and I give them all a sales target and they all get a bonus if they meet it, then I make mine. This is not about you, it's about me. Self-centered. So, think about academia. Pass this exam or I'll fail you. Think about marketing. Buy this product or you'll be ugly. Think about healthcare. Follow this protocol or you'll get sick. Think about parenting. Do what I say or I'll punish you. Think about business. Do what I say or I'll fire you. Think about politics. Vote for me or the bad guys will get you. Think about religion. Join my religion or you'll go to hell. Think about our entertainment complex and our media. And finally, I can't resist this one. Take this little blue pill or you fill in the blank. Right? Actually, when I think about it, blank's not a great word, is it? May not the best way to put this. So you see how we've used fear consistently everywhere in our society. Now look, let's look at inspiration. From the Latin sperare, which means spirit, to affect, guide, or arouse by divine influence, to fill with enlivening or exalting emotion, to animate a divine influence upon human beings, to give life the breath of God. How many of you have had, let me see a show of hands, how many of you have had someone in your life who's a teacher, a mentor, a coach, someone who inspired you? A lot of you. This is somebody who loved you. See that word again. This is someone who didn't need anything from you. It was a gift to you. They wanted you to do well and succeed. It was an act of love and service. See the difference between motivation and inspiration? I'm not saying that motivation is bad. If this room catches fire, I'm going to motivate you to get out of here. So there's a time and a place, but what we need to learn is the difference. We need to know when to choose between motivation and inspiration. And all we know is motivation. So motivation then is a goal or a metric that you probably wouldn't do otherwise, and inspiration is something you do anyway. Motivation pushes, and inspiration pulls. Motivation is an idea you go after, and inspiration is an idea that goes after you. Motivation is lighting a fire under someone, and inspiration is lighting a fire within someone. Motivation is the need for each other, and inspiration is the love for each other. You see the difference? So the shift we want to make then is from motivation to inspiration. Then we'd change everything in the workplace.